Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the channel, Distilled Noisier. I make minimal house music and production videos on YouTube, and today I want to talk about home mastering. I've already made a video about mastering on my channel, but recently I've simplified a lot my mastering chain, and since I posted about it on Instagram and received a nice feedback, I've decided to make a video about it. So here is my 5 plugins mastering chain. Let's get it started. In the meantime, just got these new records. Good day. Oh man. So a little bit of a disclaimer. This is a video about home mastering, which is different from professional mastering. If you need to get your track released on a label or even more printed on vinyl, professional mastering is the way to go. But let's suppose that you have an unreleased track that you want to start checking in your mixes or record it on a podcast. Well, in these cases, maybe you do that long before you are going to release the track and going to pay for a professional mastering. So being able to master your own track with a homemade master is something that helps you save money and also understand if your track is really finished and ready to be released. Also, both home mastering and professional mastering rely on a very good mix. So before starting to mastering your track or before sending it to a professional mastering engineer, you need to have a good mix. So the track I'm using as example is a track that will be out on Storytellers in March with other 2 tracks of mine and a remix from Dot13, which is one of the guys behind Storytellers. Let me quickly show you a part of the track. So let's check the master chain. As you can see, I have an utility. This is just for boosting the gain. This is not part of the mastering chain, of course. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 plugins, which are my main plugins for the master. And this is just an analyzer, so we won't take it in account. So the first one is an EQ. The problem with my tracks, but I think most of the tracks, is that when you arrive in the mastering phase, they are almost always too bassy, so there are too much low frequencies, and these low frequencies being the frequencies that most have impact on your limiter, because the high energy in that area of frequencies, they need to be taken care of. So what I do is just reducing a little bit the low frequencies. So as you can see here, I had 1 dB low shelf and then another 1 dB bell shape cut here around 80, which to me was sounding a little bit too much. These are very subtle changes. In the mastering phase, 1 dB, 2 dBs are already a lot for what I learned. Let's check it out. The difference to me is quite huge. Usually I make cuts also in this area if I feel like there is the need to do it. In this case, I thought it was okay, so I didn't try to experiment with cuts around here. So the first EQ is made for cuts in my chain. So I attenuate those frequencies that I need to attenuate. And the reason for that is that the following plugin is a compressor. So I don't want to enter in the compressor with frequencies, with material that I already know that I want to get rid of. You don't need to have the fab filter. You can use the EQ8 for doing this. It's just an EQ. I'm used to use this fab filter. It's a little bit more advanced, so that's okay. But if you only have the EQ8, just use that. Another thing that I want you to be aware of is the shape that you use for cuts, especially in low frequencies. So in this case I used a low shelf and a bell shape, but sometimes you may need to use a high pass, so something like this. In this case it's not needed because as you can see I have a very gradual and nice decreasing in the low frequencies toward the sub frequencies, so there is not a lot of energy in this area, nothing that I need to cut away. If you need to use a high pass on your low frequencies, you need to be careful of the slope of your curve. For example, if you use a 12 dB per octave, in most of the cases this is okay, it won't cause you any problem. But if you decide to use a 36 or 48 dB per octave, you want to have a very strong cut on the low frequencies, you need to be very careful, especially if you go towards the points where you have more energy from the kick and the bass, because this could cause phasing issues, phasing problems. I won't go into any detail of this because it's very complicated. I will leave a video in the description which explains very well the problem, but you can do this if you have a plugin, for example like FabFilter, that supports linear phase, that has the linear phase function. If you use the EQ8, it doesn't have this function, and so I suggest you to use the gentler curve. Don't use this on your master especially, but also when you treat kicks or bass, kick especially, be very careful of using this very steep curve. Now let's move on to the next plugin, which is the Pro C2. So the way I set the compressor on the master is always the same. Basically, I set the attack to a very long time, so I let the transient of the kick to pass before the compressor start compressing, and then I want to have a fast release in order to release very fast the compressor after the compression happened. And so this gives me a sort of pumping effect, which in my opinion gives a little bit more energy to the track. Then I use ratio at 2, and for the amount of compression I never go below 2 dBs. So let's check it out together. This is without, this is with it. In this case I don't even have 2 dBs, you can do it a little bit more. And then if I have a 2 dB compression, I boost the gain about 2 dBs so I can get back that level that I had before compressing. If you don't have the Pro C2, you can use without any problem. Sorry, I forgot to remove the EQ8. You can use in the same wave the glue compressor. This is basically an equivalent. I would set the glue compressor to maximum attack, quite fast release, ratio 2, and let's see how much we can compress it by 2 dB, 2 dB and half. Then I get back those 2 dBs with the makeup. What happened when we add a mastering compressor is that first of all we attenuate the peaks, so the track is more controlled, a little bit more controlled, and second, I can hear that the kick comes out better, and also after the kick, when the compressor is released, I can hear coming up all the hi-hats and the effects in the background. They come out a little bit more. The next plugin is the second EQ. So I've said first EQ for cuts and second EQ after the compressor for boosts. In this case I use the Brainworks Digital V2, but again you could use again the EQ8. Even the boosts are very subtle, so I don't add more than 1 to 2 dBs, but that depends also on the EQ that you use. For example, on the Brainworks I could add more because it's very gentle, while with the FabFilter you can hear the effect way more. You can see here left section and right section, but they are linked together, so they work together as one. You can see here that I have a boost here and a cut here on the lows, but basically these are switched off. So the only one that I have working is this 1 dB boost on the highs with a high shelf that starts around 12 kilohertz. So just to give a little bit of just to give a little bit of air to the mix. Another function from this plugin is the mono maker. So I made everything mono below 150 Hz. You can use an Ableton plugin to do that, which is the utility. You just set this to 150 and that's okay. Why I set everything to mono below 150? Because I want to be sure that my bass and my kick in those frequencies, in the low frequencies, is mono, which is one of the main rule, I guess, in electronic music, to keep your low frequencies mono. The last plugin before the limiter is the Crammer Tape, which is a tape emulation from Waves. If you wonder what effect from Ableton you could use to emulate this effect, I actually don't know. I've heard someone can make it with a saturator, a similar effect. The aim of the tape emulation, in my case, is first it gives the track a certain tone, so it changes a little bit the timbre of the track. Second, analog saturation also means compression. So again, when the track gets saturated a little bit by reaching the 0 dB in the VU meter, which is not the real 0 dB in the digital domain, it starts saturating the signal, so it gives the track warmth, but also it compresses a little bit the peaks, so that controls again the dynamics of the track. If you have it, I always start from the mastering soft clean compression. Be aware of lowering this all the way down, because this adds a lot of saturation of on the low frequency. I think you can hear that if I play the track, especially if I higher the volume. If I take this away, this is not a problem anymore. The thing about this tape machine is that in order to have a little bit of saturation, you need to raise up the record level, so the input level, and lower the playback level, so the actual level doesn't change. And these two are already linked, so it's automatic. And as I raise up the volume, at a certain point I hit the 0 dB and pass it. I start having a subtle saturation that help compressing a little bit the sound. Let's hear before and after. Also here the difference is very subtle, but the main thing that I want to reach is this soft compression. And also I think it affects a little bit also the low ends, because without the Crammer Tape I feel they are still a little bit too much maybe, but with the Crammer Tape it looks like they are more balanced with the rest of the frequencies. Maybe because the tape machine boosts a little bit the highs, I don't know. But I like that. So the last plugin of the chain is the limiter. I hope you know what a limiter is, but in few words it basically raises up the volume and at the same time it prevents the track from clipping. So when the level raises up and it hit the 0 point, limiter will keep everything below zero by compressing it. So it's a strong compression where you have a ratio of 1 to infinite, because you can pass the 0 point. I use the Ozone 9, which is a very cool plugin by Isotope, but you can use the limiter by Ableton, and we will compare the two in a second. So let's switch this off for now and switch my limiter on. So in order to achieve the RMS level that I want, so the average level of the track that I want, which is about -5 to -7 dBs, I start taking down the threshold. and you will hear the volume that increases, but at the same time you will start seeing here in this point some dBs of gain reduction, which means that we have some limiting happening. For now we aren't compressing anything, we're just raising up the level, and already we are at -7.8 RMS. Now we start having some compression, you can see here, -1 dB. Okay, sometimes it goes to 3, but it's very rare. And we are having an RMS level which oscillates between 7, 5.6. So this is something that for me it's enough, especially because I don't want to lose the dynamics of the track, and also because when you compress too much you start having problems where in your break, when the kick goes away, maybe the volume rises up immediately, and when the kick start it goes down because the compressor start hitting hard. So I try to be very careful, but if you worked on your track by gain staging, so compressing your single tracks when needed, compressing your groups, and then compressing in different stages here, so for example with the fab filter and with the Crammer tape, you should arrive at the limiter level, at the limiter stage, where you can achieve a good level without compressing too much. So that's basically it. This is without, so the level is very low. This is with.
Together all the time, you know, we're best friends. She's my best friend, and so when she's playing music, I like to listen to it and maybe suggest some things, and she does the same thing with me too.
So the only difference with the limiter from Ableton is just the fact that on the limiter from Ableton you need to increase the gain. It's basically the same thing. So as the level hits 0, you will start seeing here some gain reduction. This is the gain reduction. So let's try it out. As you can see, I am plus 9.6, which is basically the same thing as lowering the threshold to minus 9.5, and you can see that I have just 1 or 2 dBs of gain reduction. So this is exactly what I want. I don't want more than 1, 2, 3 dBs of gain reduction, maybe 4, but don't go over that. But you will hear if the track has problems with too much gain reduction. So as usual, super long videos. I can't make 10 minutes video. I keep promising that I will, but I can't. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will let my blog post link in the description if you want to read it, maybe to have a summary of this video. Every other thing that I told about you in the video and maybe it could be interesting for you, I will link in the description. And remember to subscribe to the channel if you didn't yet, and to like the video for the algorithm, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers guys, bye bye.